has now been around for 3 seasons, and coaches everywhere are saving time and being more efficient when it comes to scout cards. Coach Robinson from Texas says, "The thing I most enjoy is the ease of access to all the scout cards and how I can draw on them if I need to make any changes. Every coach that uses it says that it is so great to use. If you and your staff are tired of the old ways of preparing and using scout cards, check out thecoachpad.com to start enjoying Scout Team and making the 2023 season better than ever."
Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. Today we have a friend of mine, our outgoing OHSFCA president, Coach Chad Grandstaff. Coach, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, my friend. I'm doing good.
Good.
Glad we were finally able to get you on. Just kind of some hiccups the past week, but we're good. Coach, I mean, just before we get started with anything, you are currently helping out Bishop Rosecrans. How did that kind of, from where you started, longtime head coach, to now kind of helping out there, how did you kind of end up at Bishop?
It's kind of funny, I guess. I guess my career at this point in time is going full circle, because that's my first assistant coaching job. When I was 21 years old, I was an assistant at Rosecrans with my former head coach when I played at Zanesville. Whit Parks, he went to Rosecrans. So out of college, I wanted to coach, and and there's no better mentor and coach than Coach Parks, and especially someone I needed in my life. So I started coaching when I was 21, and then from there, he went back to Zanesville as the head coach, and I followed him as an assistant, and we coached there. And then he took a job in Minster, Ohio, on the west side of the state. The best small school league in the state and most of the country. There, so it was great to be able to move over there and coach over there and see a different part of Ohio, because I guess just coming from Zanesville, I guess some of my experiences were really limited as far as travel and some of that, just growing up the way I did. But so then from there, I had left there and became an assistant at Maysville High School. It's a small community right outside of Zanesville. And then I did that for 3 years, and then I went back to Zanesville as an assistant for 3 years, and then I got my first head coaching job at Danville High School, which ironically is the Danville Blue Devils, which was pretty cool, I guess, for me, because I was always kind of a Blue Devil. And I inherited a team there that, when I got the job, I think the AD told me, they said, good luck, you'll be 4-6 at best. And you had 15 unsportsmanlike penalties the previous year. They said these guys they're excited kids, they're high-strung kids. They said they're good kids, they just get a little excited. If Danville kids, they're extremely tough kids.
Yeah.
Which that's what appealed me to that job as well. And Coach Parks kind of steered me in that direction too, because he was a head coach there as well. So I went there, and I brought one of my friends with me that coached with me at Zanesville. But I just remember telling him after about 2 weeks, at that point, I'd coached long enough, I think 15 years as an assistant. I said, we're not going to be 4-6. I said, we got a chance to be pretty good. And just because of their work ethic and their grit and just how tough they were, and some of the sacrifices that I asked them to make, and they did, everything I asked them to do, and we had a great season. We got to the final 8, and went 11-1, which was extremely exciting for me. My first head coaching job right out of the gate, and I learned so much from those kids that year, and we had a lot of fun. And then it was kind of ironic, because the first time around, when the Zanesville job was open, I couldn't even get an interview, even though I was a Zanesville boy. And I played with one of the greatest coaches that coached there, and I played with one of the greatest players, or a couple of the greatest players that ever played there. But one of them was Buster Howe. He's the first Mr. Football in the state of Ohio. He was a year older than me, and he actually lived down the street from me. But so I've seen some pretty good football, but I couldn't even get an interview, so which was kind of ironic. So I had to leave, which, again, people are listening, sometimes you got to leave, where you're at, to go get a job, I guess, to prove yourself if there was any type of doubt. or whatever, and it's fine, if that's where you want to be and go back to, then you can. Because a year later they called me and said, hey, won't you come be the football coach of the Blue Devils? And I told Danville at the time when I got the job, I said, there's only one job I would leave for. I said it would be Zanesville High School. I didn't know that after 1 year that job was going to open, because I had my Danville team. I had almost everybody coming back, off of a, regional quarterfinal team. And it was kind of hard to leave, but I was going back to my alma mater, and that type of stuff. Zanesville had lost for 10 years in a row, having under 500 football, had only been to the playoffs twice in the school's history. During that time in 1978, they went to the Final Four. That's back when it only took 4 teams. So they made the playoffs then. And then I believe it was in 1997 or 98, I was an assistant there. So, but I also knew, where I was going and what those kids were about, because Zanesville has a lot of tough kids, and I grew up there, and I knew a lot of the parents, I knew a lot of the people. So I felt like I could turn that program around. So I went back there, and that's where, I guess my second head coaching job started. But I ended up coaching there for 15 years, and had, 8 playoff appearances, 2 Final Fours, and just coached some great kids and great families, being part of some great families during that time. But after about 15 years, a lot with everything, COVID changed a lot of things with just different things. And I just felt like, after, I don't know, I think it was like February, after my 15th year completed, I just started feeling like, maybe, we had got to the playoffs. We had a great season, 2021. We got to the playoffs. We got beat in the first round, but, I just felt like maybe it was time for a change for me, and maybe it was a change for Zanesville High School. Maybe they needed to hear a different voice, get maybe a different type of energy. I'm not sure anybody they put in is going to match my energy, but maybe a different type of energy. And I, being from there, I could coach those kids a little bit different, in a different way too. And that's how the parents wanted you to coach them. I always used to tell my assistants that I hired, there's only one way to coach a Zanesville kid, and that's with one foot up his butt. So, and that's how the parents wanted it, and that's how I did it. And that's why we won a lot of games. We just out-toughed a lot of people, and it was a lot of fun along the way. But it was time for a change, so I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't give that common resignation speech as far as I'm going to go spend more time with my family or this and that, and then turn around and take another job. I didn't have another job lined up. It was just time. And I always said, I include my family in all my football. So it's not about going to spend more time with them. They're with me anyway. Mm-hmm. So from that point, I was just going to take a year off and, rejuvenate a little bit. And ended up coaching middle school football. It takes us back to Rosecrans. And that's where my son currently plays. And a lot of his friends were there as well. Once we start coaching there, we got some more transfers, that just decided they wanted to go to Rosecrans and play middle school football. So, but we had a lot of fun. We had a great season. And it's always fun. It's tough to coach your kid, but at the same time, it's fun. I wouldn't want to do it any other way, with that. And I coach a lot of my friends' kids too. And then that's how we wanted it. So, and it's a tight knit group.
Good. Now that takes me to my next part is about a good group and a tight group. Is you obviously just finished up a run as our OHSFCA president. You've been involved with our association. I don't even know how long. I've always seen you there. I'm a big advocate of high school coaches joining their association. I don't really care what state you're in, just join your local and your state associations. Kind of what drove you to be so involved in our association, and you've kind of done a really good effort to kind of try to build that relationship with OHSAA. Sometimes it's a little harder than others, but you have made some strides. What kind of drove you in that direction?
Again, I think I owe a lot of my success, in any part of my life, again, to Coach Parks, my high school football coach. And that's why I believe in high school football coaches. That's why I think they're so important. And I think it's what's missing, in our society. is this because the way society is anymore? Everybody takes the path of least resistance. If it's too hard, we're not going to do it. Well, one thing about football is it's never easy. It's always going to be hard. And it's like the true grit of America, of what's left, outside of our soldiers, and those type of things. So it was him, because he was involved. And I was 21 years old. I didn't know, a whole lot of anything at that point. So he's like, come on, we're going to this clinic. We're going to this clinic. And I was at the very first clinic once they started having, the association's been around for a while, but once that big clinic we used to have it at the Radisson over by the airport, and that was my first one, when they had the banquet and all that type of stuff. So I've been doing, since I was 21 years old, I've never missed, one of our association's clinic, and he was a director as well. And actually, George Vlairboom, which is the all-time winningest coach at Zanesville High School, he coached there for 20 years. I coached for 15. But I almost caught him. But he was the president at one time of the association, and then Ron Apperson, who is the coach who went to the Final Four in 1978, was the president of the association. Coach Parks was in line to do that, but then took a different job and changed some regions and some different things. So I kind of, I guess, moved him out of that spot. But just during that time, he made me understand, one, the importance of supporting, the game of football, the kids, the coaches, and just everything about it. So, and it kind of, I don't know, sometimes disheartens me a little bit when I go to some of these clinics and, I see so many coaches out in the hallways and not in the rooms listening and learning and all those type of things. So I felt like it was my duty, it's my obligation. Football's done so much for me. My head coach has done so much for me that I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that association. I want to be a difference maker, and help make some moves and guide football in the right direction as time, because it's changing all the time. So that's kind of where I got in. I was an alternate first, and then became a region director, and then somebody said, hey, why don't you start getting in the administration line? That's like a 5-year process in itself, which do. But and then you finally get to be president and all that type of stuff. But it's just fun to try to continue to push this great game of football and help these kids any way we can, in these communities any way we can. And I had a great run as a president. I'll be the past president next year, so I'll still be in the mix, and I'll still be doing stuff after that as well. I mean, I'm only 52 years old, and I feel like I'm 32. So, God willing, a lot of time.
Okay, coach. That's I get it. Like I said, you have some great energy. It's always hilarious to watching you and Steve there go back and forth.
Yeah.
The one real scheme question I have, because we'll hit on head coach stuff after this, but like, you were a longtime I formation guy, and then Zanesville, I would say Zanesville probably helped spark some of the spread changes throughout Licking County, Muskegon County, and a couple of the other counties out there. You were kind of one of the first big ones to make that. Granville, or kind of the two that kind of started really pushing some of the spread stuff. What was kind of the cause from a long time? Hey, we're under center. We got this mentality. And then now we're 2, 3, 4 wide receivers. Everybody's spreading out. What was kind of the mentality and the reason for change there for you?
I mean, it was a couple things. One, I kind of looked at the talent I had, coming with that. And Zanesville's kind of always been in the past. I mean, from Zanesville's inception, all the way through, it's been known as like tailback. There's tailbacks. It's got running backs, really good running backs. And we had Mr. Football. We had people go, in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, go to the NFL that were running backs, and play some other positions too. But so we always had big offensive lines and those type of things. So, and also during that time, I mean, football was pretty much the eye, and if people put 2 receivers out there, and that was a big deal back in the 80s, and everybody ran a 50 and all that type of stuff. So, I mean, man, that would have been easy to cover some of that stuff. So it's basically line up and smack you in the mouth and see who wins. But so I knew a lot about it. Coach Parks ran the I and the wing T. So I had a lot of, run the ball, drilled into me a whole lot, which, I still believed in, and those type of stuff. But when I got the job at Zanesville, I had, again, a really good tailback, a good offensive line, and all that type of stuff. And that's what I had there for the first couple of years. So I knew I could live on that for a little bit, just, some big, strong tailbacks and those guys. But more, there's more and more athletes starting to play. And because on defense, I ran a 3-3, I didn't run the standard 4-4 or anything like that. I wanted to get all the athletes on the field that I could, and that was my thing, is I want fast people, on the field. So as I'm looking down from ninth grade down, there's just athletes, and maybe not quite as big a kid as we always had. So I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have to make a change here. So I started studying, and I had a group, the 2013 group, as I was looking down through in the group, the 2012 and, the 2011 group, that they're all kind of right there. And I'm like, these guys are, we're not as big, but man, they're fast, they're athletic, they got just all these skill positions, and they're tough, So I was already studying, 2-3 years ahead of time for these groups that were coming. I mean, and at that time, Louisville was great in the spread. I was studying the crap out of them. I get all the film, I'm like a film junkie. So I get, back then you didn't have Huddle. So you're getting like DVD tapes and first of all, it's VCR, then DVD. I mean, when I go to reel, but, and all that type of stuff. So I just start collecting all that stuff and just studying. And again, I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. So, and that's what I always said at Danville, because when I was at Danville, I wasn't married and I didn't have any kids. And I'd be up till 2 a.m. watching film, and I would get something. I'd figure something out. I'm watching film, and I would text, one or two of my assistants at like 2 a.m. on a Sunday night or a Monday night, and be like, I got it. Like, it's just what I did, so, and I still do it now because I just love watching film. I mean, even though I don't coach, I'm on like a lot of people's, like, they give me their Huddle access, and I don't know, I just kind of consult a little bit, mostly just because I love to watch film. I just ask them, hey, can I get your Huddle account? I want to watch. I mean, I do a lot with Pick North and and some other schools too. So it's just fun with that. But so moving from there, I saw these kids coming. So I started studying. So when I got here, I mean, I was ready, to move. I felt comfortable with everything that we were going to do. And it was a big change, 100% with all that. And, the biggest thing was, the offensive, I had a really good offensive line too. Really, with the offensive lines I had, we could have ran the eye, but we just didn't have that big 210-pound tailback that can take a beating and just keep on going. The years before that, I did. That's some really good big tailbacks that could go. But I mean, we had quarterbacks, receivers, DBs, linebackers, linemen that could move and all that. So that's when we made the switch, and it was great. I loved it, and I can remember what really made me believe in 2013 when we became full bore spread. And they always told me you can't just dip your toe in it. You got to do it. And I say 2012, I was kind of still dipping a little bit. And we had a nice team. We got to the playoffs, but we had all those kids back. And I remember having a coaches meeting, and I just had like poker chips, and I pushed them all to the middle of the table. I said, we're all in. I said, because this group right here, I said, can make a run. I said, so everybody needs to put all their chips on the table. I said, I need, not that, people weren't already coaching hard and all those type of things, but I needed that focus because you don't get those teams all the time. So, so we did that, and it just kept going, from there. But it was the Ursuline game, part of my thing too, when I got back to Zanesville, the previous year they went 4-6, and then I got that group. In my first year, we went 8-2 and got in the playoffs. And it took 8 teams, and we're Division II, and we're playing Columbus DeSales, and we weren't like ready for that, and not at that point in time. But it was just about Zanesville had won in 10 years. I got to get this place excited. We did that. We won some big games. We won 8 games. We get in the playoffs. Haven't been in the playoffs since like 1997. or something like that. So this was 2007. So, but we played Columbus DeSales. I mean, we're just getting mollywopped. I mean, it was like 48-0, I think, when the game was over or something. And I remember telling my coaches, I said, I am never living through that again. I said, so we're going to have to work harder, get smarter. Um, we're going to beef up the schedule. I'm not, I'm not going, either we deserve to be there or we go 4-6 and we don't get in, but I'm not getting whooped in the playoffs like that again. So, and that kind of helped turn the corner. So, we're looking for games, and that's when we started playing Dover and New Philly, and they're doing, at that time doing great, especially Dover's doing big things. And then we had an open date, and I'm like, we're going to play Ursuline. And my coaches are like, oh my gosh, that's because they were like thriving at that time. And I said, we got to get better. If you don't know what it looks like, how can you get any better? Plus, and I'll tell you this in a minute, but the best thing about playing like really good teams is you get really good film. Like we played DeSales, we're trading film, right? So I'm getting 3 and 4. I got 5 of their best games of people they played. And then, when you play these teams, you see really good football, and you're like, and you can always take something, and how can you adapt it to your program? That's why, I had my huddle collection was so big, but so it was Ursuline game, and we played them the first year, and they beat us 19-14 in a battle, and that was in 2012. And and we just, again, try to figure. So we ran it back the next year. And the nice thing about playing, the Ursulines of the world and some of those people is they can't find games. So, that year we played them, they said, well, maybe next year you can come back to our place. I said, yeah, we'll see. We'll do a 1-year deal right now, though. You come down to our place. So they came down. So the next year comes around. We still got that date, and they still had that date. They said, hey, are you going to come up to our place? I said, no. I said, I'm not coming up there. I said, but you come back down here if you want. And they just need games so bad, like they kind of have to go, So so we had like 8 home games. I mean, it was great. But so they came down that next year, and it was a battle again, because again, they had a big offensive line, big quarterback, just obviously they got skilled kids everywhere, and my line was good too, and it was just a battle back and forth, and we were spread, but I was probably still maybe running it. We were probably still 50-50 run pass, which is good. But it got to the point where we got down a touchdown or maybe 10 points early in the third. And that's when I just looked at my coaches. I said, I'm done. I said, we got this great quarterback. I said, I got these receivers. I said, I'm not running it unless maybe just to change it up. And then I just quit. I just quit running it. We just started throwing it. Every play, we're just throwing it, and we're just piecing them up at that point. And then before you know it, we're hitting verticals on them. I mean, so we score, we're still down 3. And our defense, we always had good defense. I mean, our kids are just tough and they play hard. So defensively, we're okay. I mean, we got them figured out. Now, if they caught the ball in the middle of the field in space, I mean, they got dudes. So it was hard to, they break one loose on us. But for the most part, I mean, our D-line's getting after them, and that type of stuff. And then, so we get the ball back, boom, hit them with another vertical. I mean, and then we just finally took the lead and beat them by 2 touchdowns. And after that game, we just never looked back. I mean, we'll run it every now and then, but we're going to throw that thing. And we weren't like we're not like a like run and shoot or anything like that. It was just, I had concepts of teams that I studied and stuff that I had from Coach Parks. He was more of a run guy, but he had some good pass plays too, and just stuff I took. And you just borrow, beg, and steal from people. I mean, if you watch enough film, you're just like, that play's unbelievable. You can get something that fits, into your system and the kids that you have, and really that's what we did. And the crazy part is we didn't run it. All we ran and run wise was zone right, zone left, and it was all inside zone, for the most part. We would throw in a wrinkle every now and then where we would pour our tackle around. We called it truck for, we'd block down and a backside tackle would block out because they're rushing upfield and our other tackle would loop around and go block the backer. And I mean, that would pop open all the time. We didn't run a lot of trap, hardly. We'd ran some quarterback ISO if somebody was giving it to us. We would do that. So we had a couple other things in, but we just ran zone, and that was and made practice easy because that's just all the line worked on. Zone right, zone left. I mean, it's always working on technique. What if you get this twist stunt? What if was against a 40, a 50? What are they doing? They walk a backer up. What do you do? I mean, that's all we ran. So there wasn't anything they weren't really prepared for. So it made it nice that way. And, we just had our running backs. They're always chasing the center. They're just cutting off the center, and that type of stuff. And meanwhile, we're just out there doing 7-on-7 and running routes and catching a boatload of balls. And really, like I said, our run play was zone with a wrinkle every week. And pass wise, we had 4 base routes that we ran. And then we probably had, I called it 1-man game, 2-man game, a 3-man game. So, the back, we ran a lot 3x1. I lived in 3x1 early on. I wish I would have did more doubles though, because as I, again, get older, you get smarter. I mean, 2x2 kind of jacks with defenses a little bit. But we're a lot of 3x1 because I want to see what you were doing. I mean, if I go 3x1 and you're playing, with a corner that plays 7 or 8 yards off and an outside backer that's splitting the difference and a safety that's at 12 yards, then I'm excited, because I call it, to me, you call what you want. You call it quarters. You call, that's cover 3 to me. I mean, we're going to flood you all day long over there. And cause we're going to eat that up, so that's first thing we'd do. And then the first thing we'd always do too is, how deep is the corner and really how deep is that safety? And if we looked out there and I got 3 receivers out there and all I can see is 2 people out there, a corner and outside backer, because the safety sitting back at 12, 15 yards, I mean, we're just going to throw the bubble. I mean, it was automatic. I mean, the first, our quarterback could check to the bubble anytime he wanted. He'd look out there and we studied it. And, he knew that if he looks out there, he just sees 2 people and we got 3 guys. Well, we're going to block those 2. And we kind of we had bubble, we called bail. Bubble was to the 3rd receiver, the other 2 guys crack, we ran that, but teams get really good at defending that, and you always get a holding call on it because officials love to call holding on those receivers out there when they're blocking their butt off. All right, so we ran what we called bail, which was an easier throw and an easier catch for both people. So this went to the number 2 receiver. So he would just take jab step and then turn, pivot, and show his chest. And what we did with number 1, the outside receiver, he would crack the outside backer. All right. Number 3 it's basically a trap play is what it is. Number 3 would go around that block and go get that corner. Meanwhile, number 2, he's just bailing straight out, showing his chest. Quarterback flips his hips, throws, and we would get it to him so fast. So it's like our receiver had a lead blocker. The only guy that could really get you is that safety. So if those safeties start cheating down to 10 yards, we didn't always run it as much. But if you're going to cheat down to 10 yards, then we're going to run vertical and switch route at you all day long. So, because I mean, we were definitely a vertical passing team. We were not horizontal, I guess. We probably took 6 shots a game. I mean, just because 1, it was fun, and 2, we had guys that could do it. So, but that play, and I actually got that play right there that I just told you from. Maybe it was Mentor back then that ran it with oh boy, this got inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, crap.
Yep. But really,
if I can see his face, can't think of his name.
Yeah, really good coach. And I was at Ohio State Clinic again. I sit in all those meetings. If I can get in the front row, I'm getting in the front row. This is actually when it was at St. John's Arena. So it was way back. But I'm sitting there and they were all spread, because they were doing really well. And he's showing all his stuff, and some of it was elaborate, whatever. I'm like, oh, we're not gonna be able to teach that. But he showed that, and I'm like, that's just like genius right there. It was easy, But that's what I mean about going to those clinics and you sit in those meetings and you might be like, oh my gosh, this is 50 minutes of really stuff, but you can always get a nugget. You can get one thing from every coach you listen to. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It was a game changer for us. I mean, we made a living on that play. But So yeah, like I said, so we never look. I know I got into some football stuff there.
Oh,
But
you're good. You're good. Hell, I'm enjoying this. I'm writing some of this down.
so yeah, so like I said, we only have 4 base plays, and that wasn't one of them. Those were like our other plays, because we ran, obviously we had a dig route, which is a flood. I mean, again, if you were playing any kind of quarters or cover 3 look or whatever, I mean, number one's going to run depending on how fast your receiver is and all that type of stuff. Typically, 12 to 14 to 15 yard in route. Number 2, what we taught him to do, he's the clear out guy. All right, so and his job was to bend it a little bit towards the corner, all right, but head back towards the safety, because we didn't want that safety to come down and try to rob any of that dig either. So he would bend it enough, and when I mean, instead of running straight out, he would just bend it about 2 yards outside of a vertical, just enough to get that corner to get nervous to stay off of that dig, and then head back in towards the safety at the same time after about 10 yards or 12 yards, just to catch the safety's eye. So basically those two are covering one guy that we're not throwing to anyway. And then then number 3, he ran a 5-yard out. So the outside backer jumped him all day. So our quarterback had an easy read. All he did was read the outside backer. If the outside backer ran with the 5-yard out, we'd hit the dig. If he dropped, because and again, if you're well coached, for the most part, you will try to take away the dig and give up that 5-yard pass. If he dropped, then we would just hit the 5-yard out, take what they give us, so, and then the only other guy you got to worry about is that front side backer. But we would just adjust our dig, and we always ran on hash for the most part. So that outside backer usually couldn't, or that inside backer, my fault, couldn't get there. And we did a lot of, back then, I didn't do a lot of side cart. I did a lot out of the pistol. So everything came downhill with those 2 inside backers and the outside backer. So even when we did our sprint out, we were in the pistol. So our quarterback would just open, and the running back would just come down and show his arms, and like, we're going to run zone right there. And that just froze those backers. And that outside backer took one more look longer than what he needed. And then that back would just veer off, and we kind of built a wall. So the front 2 linemen would take 2 steps and hinge. Well, the front 2 guys would lock on, my fault. And then from the center back, they would take 2 steps and hinge, take the most dangerous people, whatever. And the running back was in charge of anybody that came off the edge. But just him coming from a pistol set just slowed everybody down over there. So they couldn't just run out on us all the time, because some of the years before that, I would like side cart it, and we called it king and queen. And then, they're just running out there, and I would like do the whole slide protection. And our quarterbacks, I mean, only in my whole time, only coached 2 quarterbacks that were over like 6'2". So some of our guys were 5'8", 5'10". So I'm like, we're sliding everybody out there. The defense, it's like everybody just moved. We still can't see. So I quit doing the slide and did the whole step and hinge, build a wall, and let our quarterback get out there and be able to see a little bit. Because we didn't have those 6'4", 6'5" quarterbacks. In 2015, our Final Four team had a 6'4" quarterback. He was my nephew. That helps. But with that, so that's kind of what we did. And like I said, we had those there was a dig. We had what we called sail, which is basically a 3-man smash route. Outside, number 1 ran a with hitch, number 2 ran a corner route, and number 3 ran a 10-yard out to find a window. And that one was tough, because again, that outside backer is just kind of screwed. I mean, if you want to go to the with hitch, we're going to hit that 10-yard out. Because a lot of times one of my guys is just a decoy. He's a clear out guy. But the difference was our quarterback always checked him first, though. So on his sprint out, we taught our quarterback, as soon as you flip and can see, you check the clear out guy, because some teams start to figure it out, right? They're like, oh, he's always got a clear out guy. Well, okay, don't guard him, because we're going to throw it. So we would throw it. So people were like, well, you got to guard him, what I mean? So it just made it, I don't know, made it fun, I mean, again, it always didn't work, because, we didn't win state championship. We got beat. So, but, and then, so we had that sail. We had what we called sideline. This is a great route right here. I can't remember where I don't know that I got it from anyone. I think I just because I was a defensive guy before I was ever an offensive guy, because I love defense. But because I had such a big defensive background, and I knew people were playing quarter, half, or cover three, or and some of that type of stuff, I'm like, okay, I don't know how you're gonna stop this play, and it didn't get stopped a lot of times. I mean, so many people have got taken this route from us, which is great. No call even tell me too. Like, we'll do 7-on-7s. A coach walk by, recognize that route, and I'm like, yeah, because you never see it. Basically, what it is number one runs a vertical, so that's my clear out guy. All right. Number two runs an out and up, whatever you want to call it, a chair. We called it a sideline because he was going to run a 5-yard out and then bend it and run up a sideline. So he's chasing number one. Number one's clearing out the corner. And then I tell him too, once you get it to about 14 yards, you start bending towards the safety, because now you got the safety scared. So again, I got the corner locked on. I got the safety locked on. Who's going to guard the out and up? Because the outside backer is going to just stay. He's going to hang out down there. All right. So we'd hit that ball at 17, 22 yards on a rope every time. And so those safeties, they get pretty good because they practice it all week. They scout. They start trying to rob that thing, which that was the only person that can make that play is the safety. And you got to be good at it. And he's got to come from a long way to do it. So it was just tough, for people to guard. So, but that was one of them. And then number three, and that's where we started. Number three, originally we had him running a 5-yard out also. So you got both those guys running what looks like 2 5-yard outs. And we did that just to make sure we kept that outside backer down so we could see that hole better, because again, my quarterbacks weren't real tall. I just wanted to be able to see and have vision. So we would do that. And like I said, it was a nice route. Now, when them safeties start coming over robbing it, I would tell number three, you go run a 10-yard out. So if that safety wants to go over there and rob that thing, all right, then we're just going to hit a little, you just leave that big old space right there. And that would hold that safety off. And sometimes we'd also just run a vertical at him too. We would do that also just to keep safety out of the mix. So that was the third route. And then the fourth route, sail, dig, sideline. Oh, we ran verticals. I don't really count that in my 4, though. That's just everybody runs verticals. And we were an all signal team. I did wristbands. I mean, obviously did huddled up. But then we went to cards. Cards was a big thing. Everybody's holding up cards. Did that, which was kind of cool. And then, and it was kind of because I always put some on-edge stuff on the cards, like, I don't know, just different stuff on the cards. Probably shouldn't have been on cards, but and then we did the wristbands, but I just didn't feel like we were going fast enough still.
Yeah.
So we went to the signals, and we had run signals and pass signals. We had 3 coaches up there. One was live, the other 2 weren't. Then one coach was going to give you the cadence. If you look at him, he's whatever signal he's doing, Sonny is and our cadence was just red, white, blue. We had 2 different. We had a black 18 go and all that. But I mean, I don't know, Zanesville, if we ever try to go on 2, I mean, we're gonna lose 5 yards ourselves. So we, instead of going like red, white, blue, we would just use a whole different cadence.
Yeah.
We'd switch it up that way, or we go on first down. A lot of times we just went on set go, and team, people were like, well, aren't you worried about they're getting, I said, I don't care. Our guys know when we're getting off the ball. I don't care what the defense knows. I mean, so we just kept it moving that way. So then we had back, I had 1-man game, which I love that. And one is because a lot of times it's 1-on-1 back there, and you that split end receiver out there. It's usually the longer receiver, bigger receiver, and just get down. So it's kind of how we got there. And then it was amazing how much better we got on defense too, because we had all those athletes coming out playing.
Yeah.
So it made it nice.
I get it. Like that's where if you run those odd front defenses, you kind of can put more athletes on the field, and then running a good spread kind of helps that. So.
Yep.
Just from some time constraint stuff, we might have to do another episode at some point, but my one of the questions I want to ask you, because you were a head coach at different schools and you did it for 15 years. What tips would you have for younger head coaches whether they're brand new, whether they're still really like year 1, year 2, what recommendations do you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I'm still that way today. Like if you can go watch someone else practice, go watch someone. I'll start that with go to the clinics and go sit in the damn meetings and pay attention. I mean, and because you'll get stuff now. And I'm not talking so much about the college coaches either, because they get their kids all day, every day. You don't. So go listen to the high school coaches. Those are the ones you want to go listen to, so it starts there, and then. And stay off of Madden and quit putting in Madden plays. That's ridiculous too. No, obviously, you know, from top to bottom, number one, you better get in the weight room. I'll start there. You better live in that weight room, and as soon as we were allowed, to throw and those type of things. We were throwing, and I know coaches. Like right now, you're about 7 or 8 weeks away from week one, and some of them haven't even really thrown yet. I'm like, I don't know how you do that, or done anything. They didn't take advantage of the extra days that they had, or I just don't know, how you don't do it. So,
Yeah.
But, do the work. But, definitely if you can get out and watch other people practice, that is so huge. It's so huge to see how they do things. You'll pick little things up like, back when I first started, we started out with special teams. We did kickoff, right? So we're going to do kickoff. Well, I got 22 guys out there, but there's a whole lot of guys just standing there. So then I went to a clinic and they're like, yeah, while we're working on kickoff team, the extra point team's down on the other end. I'm like, that just makes all the sense in the world, because those are two different body types completely,
Mhm.
maybe, the wings, but we, again, get more kids on the field, right? So that's how I started practicing. The kickoffs working from the 40, working on kickoff, and the extra point team is down there working on extra point. And, in 10 minutes, you get a lot of reps in for two different or 15 minutes. However, you get a lot of reps in for two different units. So we would look, anywhere we could double up, we would. And then like I said, for young coaches, just keep it simple. Just be good at what you're good at. Like I said, that 2013 team, we ran zone, 4 base pass plays, and now again, we probably had another 12 or 15 other pass plays, but we lived on those 4 100%. And what you do in 7-on-7s in the summertime, make sure it matches what you do when it's game time. Don't run 7-on-7 routes. Don't throw the ball through the line of scrimmage.
You mean the running back team up the middle of the field? Is that what you're talking about?
Those teams do that. Because we had a lot of fun with 7-on-7s throughout those years. That's a whole nother conversation. But we actually won the championship here and got to go down to DC and play in the national tournament. We got to the championship game actually in 2015 and played Pulaski Academy and had it won, and we got beat and with like 3 seconds left, and they ran kind of one of those plays, where you had to throw it. I said, man, that must be a midget offensive tackle right there, because he's got hit in the back of the head. But either way, so be consistent with what you're doing with that, and watch film. Just get all the film you can and watch film and see if you can use any of it.
Now, I will say in one defense, we did run the running back seam play twice this year in a game,
and it worked.
And we did score on it, but
Yeah.
but that running back I had ran a 4.647, and he could run.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Did he go through the line? He goes right off the edge of the tackle.
The first time he went through the guard and tackle. The second time he went right off the tackle. We always taught him to find open space.
Yeah.
But yeah, it helped.
Yeah. And yeah, it's cool.
So like the last question I have for you before we finish this up, as I let somebody in the weight room, is kind of going back to offense. And like you hit on some really good stuff, and I got to figure out how to label this so people actually like watch that whole section, because there's some really good nuggets you put in there. Like
Yeah.
I would give you credit because those were like I wrote down some good notes there. Like from a practice point with that, okay, we're
A
going
lot
to
of people are like, yeah, when you give your stuff away like that, people are like, "Oh man, you just told them some of the stuff here." I said, "Well, one, everybody has film." I
like
said, two, they're going to practice against us. As a three, I said they don't know when I'm running it though, so it doesn't. None of that matters, right? It's just who cares.
so, but like from a practice standpoint, you hit on a little bit. But what did a typical offensive practice? How did you how detailed you get with it? Like, what did your offensive practice schedule look like?
It again, we would try to keep our practices under 2 hours as much as we can, especially as the week went on. As far as between hitting and time on the field, like Monday, and I know a lot of people like they use Monday as, oh well, we watch film and that's our helmet and shoulder pads day and da da da. No, Monday was our big because we met on Saturdays. I give the kids Sundays off. So and they're kids, right? I mean, they're teenagers. They bounce back quicker than whatever. So Monday was our hard day, you know. So that was our big hitting day. I mean, we would hit and do a lot of that. We do the install stuff too. But that was the longer that practice was probably 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Then Tuesday would be 2 hours. Wednesday was about an hour and 45 minutes, and then Thursday practice, which we actually script Thursday practices. Like we do like a first half. So we'd script our first 10 plays or whatever. And we would script the whole practice. We throw in all the special teams. It was really it's a cool thing. I got that from one of my assistants, who's actually the head coach at West Muskingum now. But so we did that, which was really cool. But our practice is basically, we everything we do, we start out with something team oriented. And one of the big things we did every practice, well, Mondays especially, is we call them team bags. We would do we'd have quick position group meetings on the field, demonstrations. It wasn't like sit around talk time. It was only for like 5 minutes, so you had to get it popping. So, and then we would do our little dynamic warm up. Real quick, and that was all pretty fast too, because I'm not a big warm-up guy. I mean, some of those people spend all that time warming up. I mean, I'm a big feed the cats guy. I don't know if you ever read Feed the
Yep,
Cats.
that's how we run our stuff.
Yeah, I think he did some stuff on that. But I agree with that 100%. Especially I had a couple games that way. I mean, we're playing somebody and there's a big break, and they're like, coach, you got 18 minutes to warm up. I was like, what? You got 18 minutes? I mean, we beat the dog snot out of that team. So I was like, I'm done. I'm done with these warm-ups, to the point where referees would come and be like, hey, are you guys going to warm up? I'm like, yep, we warm up about 25 minutes and then we just go. I mean, we're not going to play the game before the game, because you're trying to put it in and figure it out at that point, you're late. But so so we did that. So we do our dynamic warm-up. Then we would go right to team bags, which again is this step over dummies. We had 10 of them, so 5 and 5. We had our kids getting 2 lines. It was just a team. It was just a rah thing, and we got a little circuit we do right there. But it really just got their energy going and their focus going. So that was like on Mondays. On Tuesdays, we would go right to a progression tackle. I teach a progression tackle. Been doing it forever, and I love it that we do, and it's on bags. So you say actually we did that on Wednesday. That was our Wednesday hitting, because we wouldn't hit on Wednesday. And Tuesdays we did something else. We did something team oriented that way, and then we would go right to special teams and hit 1 or 2 of them with that. And we only would do 1 or 2 because in our scripts we would hit them again. We threw that in our script. It might be anytime we had a transition, we were going to finish. Even if we're just going to go get a whole team water, we're going to finish with punt, or we're going to finish with kickoff or whatever. And I would practice the crap out of punt and kickoff. People would be like, you need to practice more punt return and more kickoff return, and which I'm not saying maybe we shouldn't, but we had pretty good schemes for that too. But those are just dudes making plays. Yeah. If you can't one punt and go down and cover, protect your punter and go down and cover, or 2 go down and make the tackle on kickoff, then you're in trouble. The rest of that stuff's bonus, as far as I looked at it. But so we would do that, and then we would go right to like individual. So quarterbacks doing their thing. So it was this indie group and team, but we had a lot of indie. We'd have indie, and then we had I called it like indie plus, where now the quarterbacks are with the running backs. And then we would go to group. The running backs would be with the O-line working on pass protection. We did that a lot. And then, so we just and then we would go team. Team wasn't always as long, just because the beauty of just doing what we did when we only ran zone and a cold run play, and we had that all got put in the summertime in those camp days. I mean, we were like bored by the time the rest of that stuff got here. So it was just constant technique training all the time.
Okay. Well, coaches, give Coach a follow on Twitter. His Twitter will be in there. So if you got any questions for Coach, like, share, subscribe, all that lovely jazz. Check out our sponsor, Coachpad. Otherwise, that's another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.